A warm welcome to everybody who's on the session today. I'm Harsha. I'll be your administrator for the evening and your co-host. So folks, before we kick off with this week's session, which is basically Whisky, Glassware, and Gizmos, I just want to give you a couple of pointers on what the club plans to do. In fact, we had some great plans for these months of April, May, all the way up till September, till COVID knocked us out dead. Okay, so what we had planned actually was a trip to Singapore. Singapore, in fact, has some fantastic, world famous whiskey bars, all in a. I mean, there are about 5 or 6 of them in a radius of about 1 kilometer. So we had planned a trip to Singapore where we'd gather, we'd head there together on a plane, find everybody accommodation in one particular hotel, and also take you guys out to these bars over 3 days. We had about 5 bars that we had outlined, and also had worked out some good rates with them. They've got some fantastic whiskeys, so we said that they've got to put out their best whiskeys at the best prices for us. They'd agreed, and if things were good, we'd probably be sitting there right now. Yeah, but unfortunately, things haven't worked out. We still haven't knocked this plan off the calendar yet. Maybe if things pan out well over the next 6 months, we do it somewhere towards the end of the year, or maybe early next year. So we're calling it Singapore Sling, that particular event. So just watch out for some communication from us. When the time's right, we'll do that. Okay. So that apart, we also have a bunch of other things lined up. E-tasting is on right now. So what we're going to do is we've just released our Paul John single cask 6028 recently. We were planning to do a tasting session for that. I guess that is going to be done online. We won't be able to do that anytime in an outdoor environment with all of us sitting together. So we'll do that soon. Another tasting session that we had planned was the Game of Thrones series. I guess Sharadh just pulled out one of the Game of Thrones bottles. We've got all 9 of them. Now, when I'm talking about 9, I'm not talking about White Walker. That is not something that we would consider in the scheme of things here. So we've got 9 single malts, all of them with us. We probably send you a picture sometime soon. The proud owners that we are. We're probably the only ones in India to have the full 9. That's an assumption, though. We will have a tasting for that very soon. That's going to be in Bangalore. We'll put out a timeline on that also soon. Right. That apart, we have the trilogy, the Amrit Amaze trilogy, which we will be concluding later this year or early next year. The third part of the series, Amaze 3, will be released. We've been talking to Amrit about it, and that particular dram is probably the oldest dram that Amrit would have released in India. So we've got a launch of that organized, plus it'll be available for all the club members to pick up from us sometime soon. So yeah, so that's a bunch of events that we've got lined up. We will let you know about how things pan out and what's the schedule for these events, right? So what we intend to do this particular session is have a few of our members pick up their favorite dram. At least, I mean, this is just to kick off the session. We've asked a few of them to get their favorite bottle and do a show and tell with us. So we've got Nikhil, who would like to ask first to show us maybe his favorite or the most significant dram whiskey that he's got in his possession, and talk to us about why it's so special.
Okay.
So take it away, Nikhil.
Hi, friends.
Hi, Nikhil. Good evening.
Good evening, guys. Good evening.
Good evening.
The bottle I have is, I won't say it's my favorite, but it has a lot of significance to it. Is a Glencairn 21 years.
Wow.
The reason is specifically is the first distillery I've ever visited in Scotland. So this was around 2-3 years back. So me and Guru Prasad had gone to Manchester for a WSET training. and the first whiskey distillery we visited was the Glencairn. And out there we had a tasting of 7-8 single malts, and the favorite that I found was a 21-year-old. What I recollect was it's still unopened. I'm waiting for it to be opened. It's still unopened. But I'm actually, what I recollect from my earlier thoughts are, it's quite fruity, a lot of berries, long finish, a nice color to it. It's a very deep color. If you just try to see it, it's slightly dark outside. So it's a special whiskey for me. I have a other number of whiskeys also, but this holds a special place. That's
I
about
can
it.
only imagine Nikhil saying that,
Yeah.
visiting the distillery. And this is the distillery that we spoke about, I guess, in the first session when I was trying to tell you folks about the lowland and highland difference.
Right.
They all split between that, right? Yeah, but I like that whiskey. I think so. It's one of the best whiskeys in terms of value for money. A 21-year-old
True.
fantastic whiskey for the price that they offer it at. I think so. Phenomenal. Really, really good stuff there.
Hemanth's got one bottle and I've been asking.
Just a minute. I went there in my anniversary
Oh wow.
with my wife in Glencairn, and this is what we got, the special issue.
Okay.
Superb.
Yeah.
I've
we
been
need
with Guru
to-
Prasad. Imagine.
I was just going to ask Anupam saying that if it is the anniversary with his wife or with the
No, with-
distillery or
Yeah.
something.
It was the anniversary with my wife, so yeah.
But thanks, Nikhil. I think so. That's a
Yeah.
phenomenal bottle. Thank you very much for sharing your views. Harsha, who's next?
We will have David go next. David, I've unmuted you. I think you'll have to unmute yourself.
I've got a very basic Kavalan whiskey. The reason why I've gone into this taste is that after I've seen a lot of these 5 area whiskeys from Scotland, I thought I'll take the other side of the tour. Basically, I like to acquire some taste. So I was wondering what's special about the East, and for all the notes and stories that we hear that the East has built up a repertoire of whiskey that are equally and good, matching up to the Scottish taste. I started with the Irish where my son lives. So I've been tasting some of these Teelings, the Tullamores, the Writer's Cheers. And why I chose Kavalan is to start at the basics. Basically, when we reach to a certain level of maturity and you understand whiskey better, you want to know what the basics is. And for what I learned, this Kavalan is pretty fruity, and I like to start from the basics. So what I did was when I chose the Kavalan range, I went to a little bit of the story part of it, and I understood how from a government relaxed norm way back in 2006. When the monopoly was broken, Kavalan was the first one to establish itself. And then, of course, they came up with some great whiskies, chose 3 different barrels. And today, I think they're seen as one of the good single malt whiskies producers in the world. I was also amazed at the fact that they had 1 million, they generally receive between 1 and 1.2 million visitors a year to their distillery, which is there in Kavalan. So, this whiskey for me is the start of the non-Scottish tour, and I hope to see a lot more world whiskies. So I have at the back of my mind to take the Yamazaki route, having finished the Irish tasting a bit. So that's a little bit of the Kavalan story that I have. And with that, I also have some good pairings. I believe this is a good pairing along with the whiskey. It has the mango flavor, so I thought the mango starters along with the Kavalan will make a good pairing for these sessions.
We can't really see what you're showing, David.
Can you see that?
No.
Your camera.
You'll need to move your camera down, I guess, for us to see. Not yet. Furthermore.
Still trouble?
No, we still can't see what you're saying. Oh, finally, a little more higher. Yes. That's better.
I believe
Yes.
it's a good pairing, and I thought it is the mango season.
Yeah.
Kavalan also has some notes on mango, so I thought it's just the right pairing to do with it.
Absolutely. That's a great story there, David. I think so. That's very true. I think that Kavalan has established itself as one of the, good distilleries that is from the New Age section, I would say. fantastic whiskeys. Their sherry whiskeys are absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, whom do we have next, Harsh?
We'll have Sharadh go next. Sharadh, if you can unmute yourself and talk about your favorite dram.
I'm just going to stay local. What I enjoy, basically, I like more of the PT stuff. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you can. Yeah. So I'm basically more into the PT stuff, and I'm going to stay local here. Go with, say, an Indian brand, which I enjoy. And even though I have a few of the bottles, but what got me into peat, usually people say that, the first thing you drink, you should never get something which is peated. And then either you like it or then you hate it completely. So in my case, I had the Paul John Bold, which was probably one of my first peated ones. And the moment I had it, I loved it, and that got me into peat. And then from there, I went to Lafroy, Ardbeg, Port Charlotte, all that stuff. And looking forward to an Octomore sometime soon. But recently, I managed to get one of the Christmas editions from Paul John. So as you can see, I've basically finished probably half of it. So this is a very, personally, I like this bottle very much because it's got a lot of the, dark fruit, and so from peat, now my taste basically it's starting to evolve into intense and rich, flavored, full-bodied kind of whiskeys. So Paul John, the Christmas is one of my current favorites, and like you said in the other session, like bottle, look for something which is limited, as it is with our single cask edition, which you got out. So probably these two are limited to about, let's say, about 3,000 bottles. So at least in India, around the world, and I managed to get my hands on one of these, and the dark fruit, the nuttiness, that all comes across very well. It's sweet and Christmassy. So that probably right now is my special bottle right now. Although I'm also onto the bourbon trail, but I have quite a few bourbons in my collection. So
it's never enough, is it ever? I mean, the journey keeps going on. But again, I think so. The Christmas whiskey from Paul John is really, really good.
Yeah, it's a good brand.
Yeah, I think so. It's what I'd have to say about that whiskey is it's got something for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's got something from a little bit of peat, a little bit of sherry. It's got something from everyone.
Intense.
Yeah, it's pretty intense as well.
Okay, folks, we are going to take it back from here. We're going to hand over to Hemanth. But before we do that, let me just run you through the format of the session again. We're going to have Hemanth speak about his glasses. I'll show you what he's displayed in a bit. We'll probably run through that part, and then we'll have a few question answers. So if you have any questions, keep them aside or send it to me, and I'll unmute you, and you can take it from there. Then we'll come back to a couple of gizmos that we have for you here today, and towards the end, we'll have a couple of other members talking about their favorite drams. Right? In case of any disruptions, we'll try to log back in. If you cannot, we'll try to reschedule this session. Right? So folks, I am going to switch my screen and hand it over to the boss man here, and I'll show you what he's been up to. Okay, so that's Hemanth sitting there from my camera. Okay, he's got this massive bottle of whiskey with him, and all the glasses that's lined up for the evening. Right, so we'll come to them one by one, but now I'm going to hand it over to Hemanth.
All right, Harsh, if you can get on mute so that we don't resonate each other, thanks. Okay, thanks guys. I think so. What I need to say over here is that this session has been very different for me as a person who runs the club, and in terms of doing sessions, doing master classes. I think so the session has been very different for me. all the three in fact, because predominantly if you look at any sessions in terms of whiskey tasting, it revolves around sharing tasting notes and sharing views about the whiskey as such. But this session has been a little different. We have had to speak about things which, such as whiskey selection. We spoke about whiskey investment, fancy, etc. We spoke about various angles which probably a little away from actually tasting the whiskey. So it's been a lot of prep work for us to get this information across. And I think so one of the key things that we always have focused upon is that information that we actually share on this session is predominantly up to everyone's liking. So we've had to do a little bit of balancing. We have folks like Krishna and Bill and folks like that who are probably, and Damoo, who are very advanced in their whiskey learning and their sessions. That's there. And we have probably had some new folks who have joined us in terms of whiskey. So it's been a combination of audience, and we've had to moderate that our session to ensure that everyone gets something. And we hope that we have been successful at that. But this session, I wanted to keep it light. I wanted to ensure that we show some practical demonstrations and some fun items that are there in the world about whiskey. I think so that's what we wanted to do. That's point number one. But before I get into glassware, I just want to ask Harsha, just touched upon what we are going to do in future for the year. Did any one of you guess the location of the maize in Amrit, the limited bottle? Okay, for those of you who don't know, Amrit Amaze, amaze is a kangaroo word. It carries a maize in the label, and the maize is an actual location in India. There's a story behind it, because there's only one way you can get into the maize and one way you can get out. There's an actual maize in India which has been created. Apparently it used to be an escape route for the kings back in time, and that's what the label is based on. But till date, I haven't received anyone. Some people have been close in terms of where they have got to, but I haven't got anyone who actually told me the actual location. So I just want to ask on the call, has anyone guessed? Please don't call it out, because we have a surprise for the one who actually guesses it right. But if you have recognized, I'd like to know if anyone has recognized the location. Yeah? No? Okay, take a look about it. We really spent a lot of time in conceptualizing this, because we wanted the whiskey and the label to be cohesive, not some story that is just built in. We didn't do that. So Google doesn't help. I can tell you that much. This is something that I'm sure that some of you must have tried Googling it. We did a lot of Google before we said that label and that clues apart. So with the third release, we're going to release the third clue. So I'm hoping that at least someone would be able to guess the location. But in the launch sequence, we're going to have an audio visual which will capture the essence of that location which we had done. I'm not sure if any of you actually saw the release video for release 2. We have set it up on our YouTube channel. Go ahead and have a look at the second release video. I think so. Again, we spent some effort. We don't know if it's good or not. Tell us about it. Well, that was about what we're going to do and about Amaze. So glassware, I think that I can only tell you saying that glassware can be as important as probably 50%. I think the Simmer is not on mute. If you can help me put him on mute, it's disturbing. All right. Sorry, Simmer. Thanks. So I think so when you're trying to select glassware, when you're using glassware for drinking whiskey, it's only when you use the appropriate glassware and when it hits you. Now, everyone talks about glassware. Everyone will tell you saying that you need to use the proper glassware to drink whiskey, especially when you're tasting things like that. But in my experience, and I'm being very, very candid out here, I think so glassware is something like the nose and the palate of everyone. It varies from person to person. Some people may get accustomed and may like as basic as an old fashioned to drink whiskey, which they will enjoy to a great deal, and you give them a Glencairn or you give them a Copita, they don't really enjoy drinking whiskey from that as much as they do with the old fashioned. So while I can show you a range of glassware, Harsha just flipped a screen over. So I've got a range of glassware that I'm going to take you guys through. But I think it's up to you as to how your nose reacts, what's the kind of whiskey that you're drinking and things like that. That should be the deciding factor for your glassware. So don't go by anyone who tells you saying that this is the best glassware for this. It's not going to work for everyone. Some people have very sensitive olfactory senses, so when they actually smell or when they actually taste through that, it's the entire enjoyment that needs to comes together with these accessories that you're going to use. So keep that in mind when you're actually picking glassware. Don't go for like the most expensive, the most fancy. Yes, it looks great in the bar, and if you're a collector like myself, I like to collect because I want to experiment with that. But I have some ones that I stick to when I'm tasting, right? So that's a little bit of a prelude in terms of glassware, right? Okay, so I think that one more point that I want to mention is saying that we will be releasing our club branded glassware pretty soon for everyone to buy online. So that's something that we have been attempting to do for quite a while, and COVID has thrown a spanner in that as well. Now, when I say that we're going to release it on, some of you may already have our club glassware in place because you've been a part of our sessions in, let's say, Goa, in other locations you've been, and you've managed to get your hands on that. But we're going to put that up on our website, or maybe we're going to tie up with some of the e-commerce biggies to ensure that everyone gets a reach out of that. So we're going to do that. Okay, so first I would want to classify glassware into two large sects. One is with stem and one without stem. Obviously very clear in terms of with stem, this is with a stem. It's got a stem beneath, and it's got the actual container where it holds the whiskey on top, supporting it. Now, SMAC had always, the club had always, with an intention of, ensuring that we keep an Indian tone to it. So with an Indian tone, I think so what's important to note is that I think so these work very well in summers for us. Usually, when we talk about colder countries, we would probably prefer one without a stem so that you can warm the whiskey a bit in your hands. When you're holding the whiskey, your warmth actually transfers onto the liquid to ensure that you smell better, you taste better. But in a place like India, I think so you're going to, if you're going to hold it in your hands, you're going to make it very, very uncomfortable sometimes to drink, especially if it's high ABV whiskey. You're going to ensure that you're going to heat it up a little bit more. So that's one thing. All right, so let's give it a go in terms of the different kind of glassware. So Harsh, I'd want you folks to probably look at Harsha's screen if you can have multiple screens enabled, but I'm going to use both in case you're able to look at. Can you do that, or you're going to use the phone? I'm just looking at the first traditional terms of glassware that we're going to use. This is, of course, the old-fashioned glass that is the most common. Now, say what you will about this glass, gentlemen, but what I can tell you is saying that if you're actually looking at drinking whiskey, and I'm not talking about tasting, I think so this is the most comfortable. It lets you add ice, add water as per your convenience. It's just easy to knock back. So I'm going to leave old fashioned at that. The next glass that I'm going to, probably talk about is the Glencairn glass. Now, the Glencairn obviously again is a very, very common glass that is, and probably the most widely used for nosing and tasting. And I can tell you it's very, very effective. I think that the design of the glass is ensuring that there's got an adequate bowl that ensures that the whiskey stays in exposure with the air, and it's got the shape to ensure that the flavors and the odors of the whiskey actually come through to the nose, concentrated at you. Again, very very effective glassware out there. I'm just going to move on to the next one which I have, which is a Copita. Now Harsha will have to probably help me here. Okay, so if you look at this glass, the Copitas, I've got two. In fact, one is a larger Copita and one is a smaller one. If you look at these glasses, folks, I think so. If you see master blenders, most of them rely upon this glass. I really don't know why, because I've tried asking a few. They've told me it's to do with comfort with the glass and its sturdiness as well. It's inexpensive. It doesn't really, and it allows them to probably swirl the whiskey, especially when they're doing their blending. It allows them to do that. But again, this is a very very comfortable glass when you're doing some tasting and you're doing some nosing, because of the shape. And it holds, I mean, depending upon the glass that you select in terms of volume, it holds a bit of whiskey that you can actually put in. So that's about a Copita. Again, very very effective glass that you can use. Now what I have next is, I've seen quite a few folks using this for drinking whiskey and tasting whiskey. These are grappas. Now they've got a very unusual shape. If you can see, some would say that they look a little bit fancy. If you put a little bit of dark whiskey in them, they do some great pictures. If you're interested in blogging and things like that, they do some great pictures. But I think that the thing about these glass is that they've got a bowl. Some of them have got a bowl, and they've got a concentrated tulip with it, and the mouth of the glass actually expands at the end. It's got a slight increased indent, which ensures that flavors are not actually thrown at your nose at that, probably because if you compare that with the Glencairn, for example, if you look at the nose of the Glencairn, it's actually concentrating towards the mouth. But if you look at this grappa, it's actually expanding a little bit, towards the end. So that's the basic difference. Again, will suit some, may not suit all. Again, you can take your chances with that glass as such. Now, the next one that I'm going to show is what Anupam was showcasing. This is our, the club glassware. But this is a whiskey tulip, and this is what I call it because this is something that we got custom made, and it's available in some stores. But what this does is that it actually puts like a Glencairn on a stem. That's what it pretty much is. It gives the comfortable bowl for the exposure of the whiskey. It's got a concentrated mouth to ensure that the smells of the whiskey is not lost, and it's got a comfortable hold to it. So it I think so works really really well in India. So this is one of my favorite go-to glasses, especially when I'm doing my tasting. It helps, and when I'm swirling the whiskey as well, it actually, compared to the Copita, for me it's comfortable because it helps me not to spill the whiskey. So that's something that it really helps me with. So that's about the whiskey Copita. Now the next one that I'm going to show is, guys, the mini Glencairns, and I've got something like a cradle glass out here. This is actually the glassware given to me by Arnoho, the new distillery in Isla. Now, what I am going to tell you, folks, about this mini Glencairn and this mini cradle glass is they're very comfortable to carry around for your trips if you're going to, whiskey tour, and if you're not going to be presented with appropriate glassware, this is really really comfortable to carry around. But one thing that I really want to tell you, folks, anyone who's using a mini Glencairn of sorts, is that you need to be conscious about the volume of whiskey that you put into these glasses to get the right notes out. A large deal depends upon the volume. If you actually load the glass to a large extent, you're going to actually get very strong smells out of this, and probably you may miss some small nuances from it. So that's very, very important when you're using the mini glasswares. Okay. All right. Here's another, some would call it fancy, some would not, I guess. This is a chef and sommelier open up spirits glass, and it's very, very, again, one of those glasses that are really good in terms of a combination. I think this would be the only glass that I would say has got a very delicate combination between the drinking experience and the smelling experience, because it's got adequate quantity. It holds quite a bit of volume in it. It's got a nice bowl. If you look at the glass in detail, I don't know if you are able to look at it. It's got a nice bowl in terms of the exposure to the air. It's got a nice concentration, exactly like the Glencairn that comes in handy when you're nosing the whiskey. And it's quite sturdy. It's really, really, I think so, built for, you know, some handy use here and there. Again, a very, very good glass in terms of tasting, folks. It's a chef and sommelier open ambient spirits glass. Very, very good indeed for tasting. Now, the last couple of glasses that I have is, of course, you've seen me drinking through this, so I'm not going to talk about showcase the glass much. This is a 1920s blender's glass. Now, it's got a huge onion-like head, and it's got, you know, a nice mouth onto it, which is very, very concentrated in terms of, you know, the mouth of the glass. What I will tell you about this glass, while it looks fancy and it's really, really nice to use as well, but what I can tell you about this glass is some of those delicate whiskies, especially from lowlands, or some of those whiskies that are really wound up, especially aged whiskies that will take some time to open up. I think so. This would be the best glass that you can go towards to actually experience that whiskey, because it's got adequate, I mean, it's got a huge bulb which ensures that there's a lot of aeration, and there's a lot of concentration towards the nose, towards the mouth of the glass, to ensure that the smells come straight into you. But I think so, what it also does is it ensures that the strong notes don't straight flow across. Now, if you look at this in comparison with what I was talking about, the whiskey copita, look at the difference. I mean, first of all, obviously the bowl and the bulb of the glass is not adequately big. I mean, in comparison, this is like massive compared to the other one. But what it also means is the distance between this is pretty short. When you're looking at the volume, if this glass is filled with some volume of whiskey, the distance between your nose and the whiskey is pretty short. But over here, unless you're really going to fill this glass, and that's, you're not supposed to do that in this glass, unless you're going to fill this glass up to half the volume, there's quite some distance between the nose and the whiskey. And I think it really helps when you're putting some strong smelling whiskeys into this, against which probably a light whiskey, it really would help in terms of getting the actual notes across. I think so. It's a really, really good glass. Again, something that SMAC would be delivering to you guys shortly in terms of bringing this glass to its members. So we're going to be working very, very hard to ensure that you guys get this glass out. Now, if you guys, for example, don't have the 1920s bartender's glass, which is quite expensive, I should say, it's around 20-25 pounds, give or take. If you don't have one of those, I think so the other alternative is that you can actually use a snifter or a brandy balloon. But again, I think so the trick out here is that don't, with a balloon, don't let the whiskey air too much, especially if you're using lower quantities, because you're exposing a lot of air into this whiskey, and you may actually miss quite a lot of notes and flavors into this. So I think so I've covered all the glasses that I have, and we'll take a quick break in which I take some questions. If you have any specific questions about the glasses that I showcased and anything that you have, and also if any one of you have got anything different from what we showed you, I'd love to have a look at it, and I'd love to hear from you. Right, Harsha, on to you.
Good. Thank you, Hemanth. Folks, we would like to hear if you have any questions. We're going to let Hemanth take a breather right now. So during that time, is there anyone with questions? I've not received anybody. I have, in fact. Aniket asked me a question on chat. So Aniket, I'm going to unmute you. So would you like to go? Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Actually, this is not related to whiskey or not related to glasses. So I mentioned
Can't hear you,
only at the
Aniket.
last.
I can hear you.
Wait, sorry.
Hello.
Yeah, Aniket, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Go
actually,
ahead.
I mentioned into chat that this can be taken at the last because it was not directly related with whiskey or with the glasses. I was asking about the sanitizers by Paul John. By chance, if anybody has got it, but let it be. We can take it at last if there are any other questions.
Okay, but do any of you have any questions about glassware?
If not, then you can take these also, no issues. I would like to ask all the one who are attending, as we all know, due to COVID, all the distilleries are producing sanitizers. So anybody has got any sanitizer from Paul John, because they are also producing some sanitizers, and there were some pictures on their Instagram handle.
Now, that's a very unique question, I must say. That. Yeah. I think that, Aniket, while I let Harsha unmute everyone so that if anyone wants to respond, they can. But I think that predominantly, Paul John, what they've been producing has been locally used in Goa. Anyone? No? Simar, you're saying something? Because your mic keeps going on, so I'm going back to you.
Yeah.
Nothing. I believe Harsha unmuted everybody, so I got unmuted as well.
No worries. Okay. If
Sorry, I'm having some technical issues.
Harsha needs to unmute me as well.
Wait 1 sec, sorry. Technical issues. Yeah. Where are you, Hemanth?
Quite some participants.
Yeah, you're okay. You're done. Sorry, there was some issue with my system.
Okay, guys, can you hear me? Okay, I guess you can. I see myself unmuted. So if you've not got any questions, then probably we'll quickly. Oh no, Anupam has got some question. I see. Yeah, Sharadh also having some question. So let's go with Sharadh or Anupam first, and anyone else. You need to let me know, Harsha, whom you're unmuting. Anupam, you're on. You can unmute yourself.
So, how do you take care of your glass? How do you like clean them, or after using them, where do you clean them? How do you clean them? Your glasses.
Okay, sorry, Anupam. So, Anupam, I guess it's usual hot water, a little bit of hot water sometimes. And what can be a little difficult is getting the water stains out from your glass. That can be a little difficult, especially if you leave it with, some droplets of water. I sometimes use a little bit of lime, but when I use lime, I ensure that the next time I'm using, I rinse it with water again before, using the glass. But pretty much hot water, a little bit hot water, that's what does the trick for me. There's nothing more than that I do. I think so. Sharadh is next. I think so. Krishna has also got a point to make. Let's go with Sharadh first. Guru is also there, so let's go one by one. So first Sharadh and then Krishna.
Yeah, just
Sharadh, you're off.
Yeah. So just a quick query. The
Yeah.
composition of the glass, does it matter? Because you see a lot of glasses around which say some are lead-free crystal and some are not. So does the composition of the glass matter? And these days you can get these Glencairns in all sorts of colors, the blue ones, the black ones. So just for your blind tastings, or they're pretty much useless. What's your opinion on that? Because in Edinburgh, I walked into one of these stores, and these glasses were there. So the person who was at the counter, he said, personally, I would never go for a glass which is colored because I can't see the liquid in it. So are those just for blind tastings, or is it just a gimmick?
I think so. Oh, fantastic question, Sharadh. I think so. That's a really, really good question indeed. I'll give you probably two, different views in terms of the answer. One is it depends as to what you would want to do with the glass. All right. If you want to do an actual tasting session, especially when you don't want to be influenced by the color of the whiskey, I think so. The best way to do it was one of those dark glasses. All right. I think so. They're really, really good. And Sharad, you need to really experience that, in terms of when you're using a dark glass, when you take the bias out of this fantastic color, when you take that bias out from your eyes, I think so it makes a really, really big difference in terms of how the whiskey tastes, or rather in your mind has how it sits. All right. You need to actually attempt this, experiment with that once to actually see the difference when you do that. All right. So it all depends upon why you want to use the glass for, whether it's for actual some serious tasting in terms of getting your head around doing that kind of a session. If you're doing that, a dark glass works really, really well. Okay. But I think so whiskey drinking, whiskey tasting has got a lot of, and the other view would be it's got a lot to do with the experience which comes with color. Is an essential component of that experience. Okay. You can't take color out from it. I think that we can try to a large extent by using these props to ensure that you to try to take it out, to remove the bias. But then it was meant to be in that form. It was meant to be with that color. It was meant to give you that experience, that visual stimuli, to ensure that you enjoy the overall experience, right? So removing them completely, well, the two views to that, I guess. Now, the second part of the question that you had was with the lead free and the composition of the glass. To be honest, I'm not going to sound very knowledgeable because I'm not on this aspect. But what I can tell you is when we were importing our glassware, the reason why lead free is preferred compared to glass with probably some component of lead in it is that the reaction that it would have, especially when you have some ingredients which would react a little more, the time that you would let it spend in the glass, if it's going to have some lead component involved in it, you might have some kind of influence out there. But I'm just thinking, on the other hand, with the kind of knockbacks we're going to do with whiskey, that's going to be a less of a risk compared to anything else. But yeah, that's pretty much what I know about lead free and non-leaded. So did I answer your question, Sharadh?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to move to Guru. Guru had another question before I get on to Krishna. Krishna's.
Hi everyone. Hi Hemanth. Just I wanted to ask regarding this lead free and with lead, and
Okay.
does it really have that health hazard? Or it's just a sort of a fashion to have a lead free glasses or with the lead. Does it really contribute in any health hazard?
As I said, Guru, I'm not going to attempt at sounding a complete professional in this because I'm not, as an amateur club. But I think that it doesn't. In my view, the kind of time that the whiskey or anything, it doesn't have that kind of influence in terms of a health hazard kind of a situation. But given the choice, probably you would prefer a lead-free glass, because that you take no chances in terms of the lead getting influenced in your food. I guess that's pretty much. But if anyone else has got a different answer which they have in terms of knowledge, whether they have information more about whether lead glass has got more of an influence, I'd be happy. But if not, then Krishna, you're on next. Harsha's going to unmute you now. You need to unmute yourself to speak. Yeah, Krishna, you're on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Krishna,
okay.
You can.
Okay. That's a great session, Hemanth. Fantastic information that actually took me back to my old days of about 15, 17 years ago. What actually happens is nowadays, in the olden days when we used to buy these glasses, the Austrian glass, Riedel. People used to say Riedel glasses. Riedel glasses are the best glasses to drink whiskey. But that much expensive glasses are not necessary. Nowadays, pretty decent glasses with at normal prices, you get lead-free, good quality glasses. Whatever you buy, for your club, they are good enough. Yeah. So expensive glasses, the Riedel glasses, the crystal glasses, you need not. No, they're not really called for to taste whiskey. Whatever you get nowadays at good price, they are all reasonably good glasses. Now, coming to the technical point of it, you have shown us so many glasses, from typical normal whiskey tumbler glasses up to the last glass, that is a whiskey Napoleon large brandy glass.
Yep.
Actually, the taste of a whiskey, how it is affected, is done by an experiment. Actually, usually you put the same whiskey in all the glasses, same quantity at same temperature, and then you taste them, same whiskey. Mm-hmm. So such kind of experiment we used to do about early part of 2000. There was an episode called Glassware Experiment by Dr. Klaus Everding. And he has done very dispassionately and very in a neutral way, putting the same whiskey in all the glasses. Actually, he put all these glasses, you can see on the website. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. From the normal tumbler to the going up to the large glass, the brandy glass. We found out, actually he found out later on, we also experimented. We found out that the brandy goblet, that large brandy goblet, that actually gave the best taste of the whiskey among all the glasses. So, but everybody can't have the brandy goblet, and when you, as you said, the nasal effect of the people varies from person to person. It actually concentrated hits. That is the major factor with the brandy glass. Otherwise, the brandy goblet, which has I think the capacity of half a liter, actually, half a liter capacity, and you put 15 to 20 ml, you can imagine how much effect it is going to have with a large air gap and all that. True. But the experiment proved, actually you can go to the website and find out. Later on, Graham Lawrence from Canada, he lives in Vancouver, in Victoria Island. He also conducted a similar experiment. It is still there available. Malt Maniacs episode number 103. You can read that if somebody is interested. So this is what I want to say. For a true experiment, you have to put the same stuff in all the glasses, same temperature.
So, you know why I'm showing you this, Krishna? The reason why we had this on the table was saying that we're going to try this exact thing and putting the whiskeys, but then I'd be really, really drunk by the time that I'd go through all the glasses. So that would not be a really good experience. But yeah, I completely agree with you, Krishna, in terms of doing that experiment.
And you need about 2-3 guys, 2-3 people to go for the experimentation.
To ensure the variances. Yeah, that's a really good thing, and I think that will be a great session to do with the members of SMAC as well, saying that make an experiment in terms of the different glassware and how the whiskey is. But I just add over there, I think so the huge amount of difference I can tell you all folks, saying that what Sharadh can smell and what Sharadh can taste against what Jomon can smell and taste and what Anupam can smell and taste is going to be very, very varied with every one of these glasses. All right, some people are going to really love the 1920s, some people are going to really, and it also depends, there's so many variable factors over here. It depends upon the whiskey in the glass, it depends upon the AB of the whiskey in the glass, it depends on the glass that you're using. Suppose you're using an PT whiskey over there and you don't like PT whiskey, that can be a really killer for you. I mean, it's just going to knock you out straight if you're going to use that kind of glass. So it's like a host of combinations that you can put together. And this is the whole thing about this entire whiskey fanatism, right? We get to experiment, so many experiments, so many combinations, so many permutations that you can have, and so many ways to enjoy this lovely spirit. I think so. As long as we get to do that, we're having fun, and as long as we're having fun, I guess we're all
Exactly.
happy
That's what
about
it
it.
is.
Yeah.
Even the same whiskey, if you have 2-3 glasses, I asked the guys to put the same whiskey in the 2-3 glasses and taste different head to head. You will definitely find the differences.
Right.
So that's where the fun, that's where the learning part is.
Sure, Krishna. Thanks as always for your great inputs. Okay, so Harsh, now are we getting? Okay, Jamon has got a question. Damoo has got a question. Okay, sure, Damoo.
You have to unmute, I guess. Okay.
Okay, I can hear you.
I really have this question, Harsha. By the way, wonderful session, and for people in the call, I think this is something that you must really thank Hemanth for, because never ever you would be able to. Uh, at a beginner stage, never ever you would be able to come across such an assortment of glasses. It took me many years to even understand and go to some to places where to try some real grappa, etc. So I think it's very special to see so many glasses, and I think most of you should gain a lot from this session. Thanks, wonderful session, Hemanth. I do have a real question. However trivial it looks, I don't mind asking this. Maybe you or Krishna can help. Two things. One is, quite often when I have some tasting sessions, and when I meet with some friends who are new to whiskey and probably try to explain to them, the first question they ask me is, "Hey, I see all these movies, etc. I see a wonderful decanter, and I never see a pair of glasses adjacent to it, which looks like any of the glasses that you have with you. It's always a simple, normal glass." And somebody even spotted, saying that in Billions, in one of the episode, I've spotted a Glencairn glass, etc. To understand this one, right? So even in my boss cabin, he has a, I don't know, some Macallan single cast 1960s or whatever. It's a lovely decanter, but they use something like this normal glass adjacent to it. The question that is being asked to me is, are you saying that the whiskey is just kept for a status symbol and you just pour and drink, or do you really enjoy the whiskey? So that's my first question. I will continue my second question. The second question is, in many of the distilleries, we get these ceramic mugs or some kind of a cups, just like a coffee cup, like Talisker, or many distilleries have this. So people ask me, Damu, when I visited Talisker website, they show me that there is a ceramic cup. Are you saying that we can drink whiskeys in ceramic cup, etc.? So I used to tell them that, look, it's not just every time you drink whiskey you taste, but you sometimes walk away, you walk to the seashore, or somewhere you sit and relax, so you carry. But honestly, I really don't know why these distilleries, they provide this kind of ceramic cup, like a coffee cup. Second, why these expensive whiskeys that you see in those like big shots room and cabin when they have the decanters? And why always we find some glasses like this? Why not? Of course, I saw one or two special Glencairn glasses, but why always like this? Is it because they know? This is something that I couldn't really understand. You put a 40-year-old Macallan there, but and you put a glass like this. So so these are my. I really don't know. These are things I couldn't find answers myself.
Okay, I'm going to attempt at this, Damu, and probably I see a lot of people smiling, which is good. Everyone on the screen right now that I can see is actually smiling at the question, which is good. So I think the first part to your question is saying that what about these fancy movies or anything that we see in terms of the glassware that they use, especially next to the decanter that I was just holding a few minutes back, something like next to that. What I think is, I think so it's a matter of a combination of both. I think so it's the kind of I would presume saying that it's the confidence that the guy wants to exude in terms of what's presented available at him in terms of, you know, the look and feel of the whiskey and how it's presented to anyone who's being served that whiskey. Now, if I present a Glencairn to, you know, anyone who visits me at my office, I think so it's more outward than inward, because I don't know whether the person who's visiting me at my office or any such location like that appreciates whiskey and wants to taste whiskey in the same way that I want to. Because I may want to, you know, experience the nose of the whiskey. I may want to experience the, you know, aromas, etc. I may want to do that a lot more because I am crazy about whiskey. I don't know about the audience who's coming into my room who may have the same kind of, but he may still want to, you know, knock back a few or have a little bit of taste, especially when I'm throwing a really, really high class whiskey. And it's got to do a lot with that, I think. And this is my own personal opinion, Damoo. I don't have any other basis of actually answering this, because I think that it's largely to do with the person who's sitting in that cabin and serving that 1960 Macallan. It's just to do with his confidence, saying that I can afford that kind of whiskey to you and I can give you in a glassware that probably is most comfortable to everyone. I guess it's just about that. That's my opinion, to be honest, in terms of what the glassware to be used. What was the other question? Sorry.
Ceramic glasses.
Ceramic glasses. Krishna, do you have an answer to this? Because I don't. I always thought that I always thought that, Damoo, that those are the ones in which you use DM water in which you can pour into your glasses. But I don't have an answer. Krishna, over to you.
You see, coming back to your first point, I just want to add a little more. You see, you was telling about the movies and all the big people buying the 1960s, 60, 40-year-old whiskeys and putting a tumbler. There, I saw a movie, multi-million-dollar movie, where the hero, the guy goes in a multi-million-dollar yacht, and that fellow puts a Johnny Walker Red Label from them. So these guys, it is probably the case that the producer or the director has not put a specialist whiskey to the person to present the scene accordingly properly. Regarding the ceramic glasses, invariably in these distilleries, the ceramic glasses or the tumblers are used for pouring water. They are never meant for drinking whiskey. That's for adding water, few drops of water, a few splash of water you put in the whiskeys. That is used for that, but not for drinking whiskey in the ceramic cups or glasses. That's my.
I had the blushes for a moment when Krishna said that he's got
to. But always for pouring water. Pouring water in your glasses.
Okay, Damoo, I hope to a reasonable extent, at least we have given you an opinion. I wouldn't say that I've answered your question, but probably I've given you an opinion about as to why the, you know, fancy glasses with that.
Pouring whiskey into the decanters is actually a tradition from the wines. You see, the wines are always poured in the decanters for the aeration. Right. And most of the wine is drunk as such, or the same evening. Okay. And that is the carried over tradition from the wine to whiskey. They put the expensive whiskey in a decanter and then they put in the glasses. Now, other than that, there is no such explanation.
Okay. Sure. Let's move on then. Is there any other question, Harsh, or anything else? Or we can move on to some demonstrations. I think so. Some people want to see some gizmos, some exciting stuff as to what we can do with whiskey, apart from you know, putting that into a glass with different kind of glasses. Of course, we have shown, but can we do anything apart from that? Anything else, Harsh, in terms of questions? Okay. Just give us a minute. Harsha is trying to figure out some things. Okay. All right, folks. Now, here are some gizmos that I have in mind. So I'm going to, if you look at Harsha's screen, I don't know if that will work, Harsha. Can you see Harsha's screen? Okay. So I think so. This is one of the most common ways, or rather, um, accessories I should call, in terms of whiskey, when it comes in whiskey accessories, etc. This is one of the most common ones that are being used. Whiskey stones, and a lot of folks actually use this as giveaways with the bottles, especially manufacturers, duty free, etc. When you go, they actually give this away when you buy a bottle of whiskey. I think that the last one that I saw as a giveaway was with the Glencairn. Anyway, so one thing I can tell you about this, folks, is that the most common question, quite a few people have used this and they've found it not very effective, because the intent of these stones were to always put them in a glass, cool them first, put them in a glass. It reduces the temperature of your whiskey and it does not dilute it. That was the intent behind this. All right. Now, I think that the most common question that I get asked is, Hemanth, are these stones really effective? Because they don't really cool my whiskey a great deal and they warm up pretty quickly. So that's the two questions that I get asked very often about these stones. All right. And what I can tell you is, first, most of the folks who actually use these stones don't use them in the right manner. So when I say that they don't use them in the right manner, what really happens is that they don't freeze it well. And I'm just going to tell you folks a little bit about these stones as to how to go about freezing them. I think so. What people do is they just take these stones and put it into the freezer and then they use it in the glasses. So they don't really work well in that manner. I think so. The best way to do it is wrap them in a cloth, wet the cloth a bit, and then put it onto the freezer to ensure that there is a lot of cold that gets transferred onto the stones, and then they are relatively, I'm being very specific over here, more effective when they're used as whiskey stones. A couple of things that you need to be careful while using these whiskey stones is, one, some of these whiskey stones are of not great quality, especially the ones that you get free when you buy a bottle of whiskey. They have a lot of sediment, so they have a lot of particles coming off the stone, so be careful about that. And the second thing is, when you drop it into your glass, be careful about that. You may end up cracking a sensitive glass with that. So these are the two aspects that I think that you need to be very, very careful about when you're using whiskey stones. Yeah, okay. Now, the second thing that I would want to demonstrate to you folks is, and you guys need to let me know if you can see. Harsha, is the visual okay? I think that I'll lose the plate and I'll use this. Can you see this? This is okay. You can see that, right? Yeah, okay. So this is, whiskey ball maker. Now the alternative for whiskey stones. And trust me, if you like your whiskey a little bit chilled, this really, really works, folks. All right. Now, what does this have? I'm just going to see, hope that this is making clear. This has got a little bit of a depression out here, and this has got a little bit of a depression out here as well. And we have.
Can't see.
You can't see this?
No, none of us can see.
You need to look at Harsha's screen, Krishna.
Where is, how to see
Can you
that?
pin Harsha's screen? Then you should be able to see that. Or Harsha, use the mic on your on this one.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay, can you see?
Yeah.
Okay. 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 So I'm going to lose this. So again, what I'm trying to show over here, folks, is that this is a simple contraption. It's got depression out here, two sticks in the depression down here. It comes with glass, and the glass is where you put the water in to make these shapes of whiskey cubes, which you're going to transfer into a ball as such. So I'm going to just quickly bring this out. What you really get out of that is something like this.
Oh.
Right? So this is a shape that you will get out of the contraption that I'm showing you right now. And what you need to do is you need to place this out here and place this cube on it. I'm just going to be putting a plate underneath because it's going to leak some bit of water. But as you can see, I hope you guys can see the screen. Harsha, can you just see in the screen saying that whether this is effectively being captured? Yeah. So as you can see, this is really coming down really fast. And I'm going to repeat this for you folks, but it's going to be very quick in terms of forming the crystal ball. And this is one crystal ball that I really like to gaze into.
Will it fit?
So can you guys see this? Perfect sphere. Absolutely fantastic. It doesn't get into the Glencairn, but can you see this right now? Now, what this really helps in is that when you use a sphere against a cube of ice, the dilution is really low, and it really works, folks. When you put some whiskey along with a cube of ice, the dilution is really fast. But when you use a sphere, the dilution is far lesser, and we can probably do it as an experiment. I'll do this once more when I'm going to use this in terms of, okay. So I'm going to do this experiment of creating the sphere once more. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a cube of ice. We're going to put it, and we're going to use another glass where we're going to put a sphere of ice, and we'll see as to which one dilutes faster, which one dilutes slower. So that's an experiment that we're going to do. But for those of you who missed this last, I'm just going to, here's the glass, here's the ice that gets out of it. All I'm doing is putting the ice on the contraption and letting that go. That's all I'm doing. And as you can see, gradually coming in. And because probably it's because of the Indian summers that you're seeing that it's going in pretty fast. All you guys, I hope are able to see this?
Yep.
Okay. So if we can get some cubes of ice, I'm just going to put them in two different glasses. Let's take some old-fashioned glasses and put them in there and add a little bit of. There you go. Almost done. So it's got some outlets at the sides at the bottom that lets the water get out. So that's the reason why I'm using a plate out here to ensure that the ice doesn't go through. Give me another. Okay, I'm going to take two glasses at the same time, and in one I'm going to put it at the same time. Yeah, a couple of cubes of ice. Yeah, no, we need to probably experiment with the same kind of volume so that it is a. But yeah, I'm just going to try to This has gone really chill, and that's the reason why it's not moving that fast. Otherwise, it moves really fast. I used this just a few minutes back, right? So this entire thing has got, as you can see, pretty cold from the appearance. This got really cold, and this is not moving fast enough. But otherwise, it goes on through really fast.
Let me try a little bit. Lift it up.
Maybe you need to put a little bit of water around it. But yeah, so essentially, I think so. Even now, what I want you guys to look at this cube. I mean, I'm sitting in a room temperature at, let's say, around 30 give or take, and the dilution is hardly any. And look at the bottom part of the sphere. There is only this much of, melting that's happened in terms of the ice sphere and such. Okay. We'll come back to the experiment. I'm just going to let this to the side to a bit to let the cube happen, and then we're going to create an experiment, folks, with these glasses in terms of the dilution bit. Now, the other thing that I'm going to show you, which probably some of you may not have seen, and I think so Sharadh, who was the one who asked this question last time around as well, is about the aerator. Was it Sharadh? I'm not too sure, but we'll get to that in a bit. So Sharadh, whoever was asked, this is an aerator, and this is a spirits aerator, as they call it now. What's an aerator? An aerator is basically something that adds in air without having to dilute it with some form of carbonated water and things like that. So it just adds a little bit of air, and you get this I got this from a brand called Venturi. I'm not sure if there are other brands as such, but I got this from Sweden. And does it help or not? Now, once when I used it on probably a Blood whiskey, I thought that it was very effective. But the other time when I used it with a caliper, I thought that it made absolutely no difference. So the verdict is out there whether it helps or not. I've not used it very often. This is something that I just caught my fancy, and I used it once. But what it effectively does is it's got a component where you put in the whiskey. It's got a button out here where you depress in terms of releasing the whiskey. I'm just going to show you a quick experiment. All I need to do is, Harsha, the screen is clear.
Yep.
I'm just going to add a little bit of whiskey out here. Okay. And now I'm just going to pick this up. And if you see the release of the whiskey, and if you look at the glass as such, there's quite a lot of bubbling in the glass. That just goes to show that the kind of air that it is being added to the whiskey as such when we did that. So if you look at the bubbles are gone now, but I'm not really sure again if this has made that kind of a difference in terms of nosing as such, but that's exactly how it works. And for guys, I'm just going to repeat this again so that you have a view of what's happening. Simple contraption, press the button, and it adds a lot of air when releasing the whiskey into the glass. And that's pretty much what this thing does. All right? Yep. Okay. So that was a second crazy gadget for the day in terms of whiskey. Now, what I have, the third one, it's not really a gadget per se. It's a part of glassware. It's called Le Impeccable. It's a glassware from Peugeot. Now, this glassware goes to the next degree of, fanatism in terms of whiskeys and people who like their whiskeys neat. Now, this glassware has got a depression at the bottom. Harsh, if you can tell me if the video has been captured right. Yeah. You can see a depression at the bottom, and I get a plate, a metallic plate, which sits on this glass like that. Now, if you can see this, basically it sits exactly like this. what you need to do is you need to freeze this. So instead of using the stones in the whiskey or using an ice spear or anything, Peugeot, who are the manufacturer of this La Impermeable, they actually manufactured this whiskey glass, and it's a fantastically well-made whiskey glass, I must tell you. It sits on this plate, and if you freeze this and place this on that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some whiskey into this glass. So what really is happening is that the temperature from the metallic plate is actually transferring it onto the glass without actually diluting any bit of it. And it works. It works for, let's say, 1 gram. It works because you need to really freeze the plate again before it gets onto, again freezing. But if you let that be for a couple of minutes, I guess you will see that the glass has got a little bit of condensation. I'm not sure if you can see this on the camera, but it's got a little bit of condensation already because the temperature is starting to dip because of the contact with this. So this is another one of those crazy things that if you like your whiskey chilled, but love it neat, don't want to influence the whiskey at all, then this is something that you need to look for. It's manufactured by Peugeot. It's called Impermeable, and wonderful glassware to go with your whiskey. But do remember, guys, the temperature does change a lot in terms of influence, in terms of smelling the whiskey. I'm just going to go back to that. I don't know if we have spent too much time, but it has gone through. Yeah, I think that you guys can see this well, I hope. If we have left it a little too long, it's got a little bit. But I'm still going to go ahead, put it into the glass. Put a little bit of whiskey along with that. And I'm going to use the same kind of glass. Oh, there's a lot of. Can you get me some cubes, Harsha?
That was part of the experiment.
Yeah, but it's already melted, so I didn't want to put it. So a couple of cubes, if you can put it out there. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to add some cubes, and you can see for yourself as to the dilution rate. Pretty much equal quantity. Now, this is not a scientific experiment. Otherwise, I would have had to use the same amount of whiskey so that there's a. But I think so. Practically, you can see very, very evidently the kind of volume rise that will happen with this, spear and non-spear. That's it from me, folks. I think that I had enough of things on my table. As you can see, my table is pretty spread out right now. Happy to discuss and take any questions or anything. I think that we're good. So Harsha, back to you. If there's anything else, happy to take it.
Yeah, thanks, Hemanth. We've had quite a few questions from folks. But before we take any questions, I have a couple of people who are holding on to something which is very special to them. Okay. So I will let them talk about their favorite dram. So I'll let the lady go first, as usual. Kasturi, if you are there, would you like? Yeah, there you are. Hi. So I'm going to unmute you. We were hoping that we'd see this in the beginning, but we've kept it to the end. But we're okay. So take us through your.
Can I ask a question before I tell you whatever? Yeah. Okay. Because you're talking about accessories, so there's this new capsule Glenlivet has come up with. So what are your views on that? Anybody?
Okay, Kasturi, I think so. Harsha has muted everyone, and we'll go at the end of the session to everyone for the view. No?
You can hear.
No. In terms of everyone, she wanted to hear opinions from everyone. Okay. So, Harsha, you're muted Kasturi again.
I'm not.
Kasturi, don't go on mute. Unmute yourself. Kasturi, can you try
Yes.
unmuting? Yeah.
No, but my question, no, because you're talking about accessories, and I don't think any whiskey drinker will want to, like, have a capsule. I don't know how it works. Has anybody tried or?
I haven't tried it as such, the capsule. Has anyone tried? Just pick up your hands if you have. But I think that Kasturi, uh, I think so. It's a way break forward. If you look at the tradition of whiskey as such, so what's been happening is that that's a leapfrog in terms of advancements in terms of what whiskey has been in terms of the accessories and things like that. There's nothing that has come close to what they have done in terms of advancements and how whiskey is being consumed. So that's my opinion. I mean, in terms of technology advancements, that's about it. And I think so. It's a great idea just to have it around. But yes, if you ask me saying that, does it really, really work? I don't know. I haven't tried it, but I wouldn't probably equate it with an experience of drinking through a glass. That's my view.
Probably take a couple in your pocket while you're flying when they're not serving.
Yeah, pretty much. I think so. That's what it's going to be used for. But yeah, Kasturi, over to you. You're going to tell us something about your.
I don't like this ladies going first always, but I don't mind it also. Okay.
No, you're the last. In fact, everyone else were.
Okay, because there was a big technical glitch. I think Nikhil also has dropped out because of that. We just couldn't log in for 42 minutes for some reason. Okay, I have a bottle of. Can you see? Oban.
It's an Oban.
It's an Oban 14 years.
Yep.
I have picked it because honestly it was right in front of my hand because I was struggling to log in. But I do like Highland single malts.
Okay.
I really do. I like the seaweed and stuff about it. And also, sometimes there's a whiskey which sticks on to you because there's been an experience with it. So most of our drinks stick on with us because there has been a story around it. I think you remember the whiskey because there is a story around it more than the flavor or the taste.
Very true. Very true.
So I think when I was maybe 10 years ago, when I was much younger, I think I bought a bottle and I had to give it. I had to gift it to my brother-in-law or somebody. And when I tasted, that was one of the times where we tasted and we kind of deciphered and nose and palate and all that. So it kind of has a good memory. So that's why. That's about it.
Okay. I think the story is a big component to any experience in terms of whiskey. So yes, I completely agree with you in terms of that. Okay, I think so. It's Sanbir next. Sanbir, you're on. I think so. Harsha is going to unmute you. You can unmute yourself now and tell us about your favorite whiskey and why it's so important for you.
Okay. Well, I don't really have a particular favorite because there are so many of these. So many of these. So what I try and do is I just try and explore, and whatever I come across, maybe I'll stick to something for a bit, do a few bottles, and then move on to the next one. I did find something quite interesting, which is available in the European market. Haven't seen it in India, and that's the Lafroy Brodeer. I don't know if anyone's tried it. It's a no age statement, and the only way to describe it is like sweet sweet. Yeah, absolute contrasts. Something which comes close to it is another lesser known whiskey called the malt, called the Ailsa Bay. Again, I don't know if anybody's tried it or not. But this is, I mean, if you can get your hands on it, it's pretty nice, pretty nice.
Okay. But why do you like it, Sandeep?
Oh, gosh, just the way it tastes. No?
Okay.
Because normally, when you start drinking whiskey, it's more, for me, it's more to do with weather, right? And as I get on towards the winters, I start gravitating towards the smokier, the peatier ones. And as the weather turns summery, I like my Speyside and floral whiskeys, right? So, but this was something which I could have anytime. Like it's sweet, it's peaty, and my anytime go-to drink. Unfortunately, this is my last bottle, and no flying around, so I don't know when will I get my hands onto the next one.
I think so. Everyone's missing traveling because of that one big reason.
Yeah.
I don't have my drinks anymore. I think so. That's been one big reason. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I would like to take the opportunity to share a couple of bottles, which are like very close to my heart. One is this Gordon and MacPhail bottled Highland Park. It's a 1970 vintage. I don't know if you can see it properly or not.
You need to bring that closer to the camera, I guess.
Yes?
Yeah. Okay.
Can you see that now? Okay. So this and one more bottle, which sort of comes in this box. We'll try and open it and hope that it doesn't fall out. Okay. So this sort of is one of those all that jazz sort of a thing. It's a 1971 distilled Banff single malt. Banff is the lost distillery now, and this is 1971 is the year of my birth. So these were the two bottles, my first real collector's whiskey which I bought, my first ones ever, and I bought both of these together. So that I mean, these are two whiskeys which I've been hoarding. I don't know whether I'll ever get around to opening them or not, but yeah, that's just what I mean.
All right, thank you, Sumbir. Thanks, nice stories behind those whiskeys. We'll probably catch up sometime in person and discuss a few more.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Right, folks, we've got a couple of questions we can take. We're well past time, so if, as usual, if people want to drop off, you're welcome to. But if not, you can stay on for the Q&A. I would let Vasu ask his question. He pinged me a while ago. So Vasu, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, Vasu.
Yeah. Hey guys, this is going to be more of a theoretical question for the ones who have tried this out. Is there a right or an ideal temperature to experience whiskey? For example, I drink a specific whiskey in, let's say, an AC bar, and let's say I try the same thing at home. Have you experienced different tasting notes, or is there at all any difference? That's my question.
Okay, Vasu, I think that I'm just going to answer that question in a way saying that it really depends upon how you would probably like the whiskey. Some people like the whiskey at around 18 degrees or maybe slightly colder at around 16. I wouldn't recommend anything cooler than that because you lose a lot of the whiskey flavors, the notes, etc. beyond that. But it's a lot to do with your preference unless you're really doing some tasting session or anything. It's largely to do with how you prefer to drink that whiskey and anything else.
Thank you.
We got Yogesh. Yogesh had a question. Hemanth, unmute Yogesh. Yogesh, can you unmute yourself? You can ask your question.
Yogesh, you're next. So Harsha has unmuted you. You can unmute yourself now. Yogesh, can you unmute yourself?
Must be away. But folks, till Yogesh is back, we can take another question. Anybody got one, can just raise your hand and you can ask.
I don't. I see Sharadh's hands going up. Sharadh.
So just a quick question. So with cocktails, a lot of people pre-chill or pre-freeze their glasses, right? They just put those glasses in the freezer and then you pluck them out and they're already at a certain set temperature, and then you basically pour the cocktail into it and serve. So does a similar kind of scenario, would it work with a whiskey? The glass is pre-chilled to say certain extent rather than using stones and stuff.
Sorry, this is what I'm going to show you, Sharadh. I think so. This is pretty much what you were talking about in terms of muting, or rather in terms of chilling your glass as such. So this is pretty much the same concept, right? You're trying to chill the glass before drinking. But as I said, it works one drink. After that, you need to send the table back into the plate back into the fridge to freeze it. So that's the reason I wouldn't recommend it too much in terms of drinking per se with it. But it does help for that one drink. It does help actually. Okay, is Yogesh back by any chance? Okay, I don't see him getting off mute. Yogesh, if you are there, can you unmute yourself?
Okay. I don't think he's around.
No. Okay.
We'll get his question on offline. Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Folks, it's been a great evening. Thank you. Harsha, you can unmute everyone, I guess, if anyone wants to say anything. But thank you so much for joining us for all these 3 sessions, for those of you who have. And really apologize in terms of the technical glitches. If anyone had some of these, we'll probably post this recording on our YouTube channel to ensure that all of you enjoy this. It's been a great evening. I hope you enjoy yourself. Thank you very much.
Just one last question.
Yeah, Krishna.
I want to know the more details of that Highland Park Gordon and MacPhail bottle. Just which year and what is the ABV? Can you tell that?
Sanveer, that's for you.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Can you tell me the year and the ABV?
It's distilled 1970.
Okay, 43%?
1970.
I'm just going to look for 43.
43% rare old?
Yep.
Yes,
rare old.
Yeah.
It's 91 points.
91 points. Okay. I didn't know that. I just saw.
You can search on the whiskey monitor. It is tested by Malt Maniacs. It's there on the monitor. It is 91 points, which means an exceptional whiskey.
That's what the guy told me about both the whiskeys when I bought it. And this was from.
You can search it. Go to maltmaniacs.net.
I will do that.
Thank you. You can search it on the monitor. It is there.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I'll do that, Krishna.
Nice. Good. Excellent. Thank you.
I think so. Guru is waving out.
Guru, you've got yourself on mute.
Unmute yourself, Guru. No. Guru is still not on unmute.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now you are.
Aniket had asked regarding some Paul John's hand sanitizer.
Yeah, I think that I answered that. As I said, that was pretty unusual question.
Yeah.
But as I said, I think so. The only
maybe the out of the out of syllabus. But,
out of the syllabus. but guys, look at this ball of ice here. It's still there.
Yeah.
So that's what a spherical ball of ice will do compared to a cube. But with that, guys, thank you so much. It's been a great evening. Hope you enjoyed the session. Do leave your comments. Thank you and cheers.
Yes.